Hello again. It's Kamil Plichta, FIDE Master from Poland. I was giving my first Banter Blitz on Thursday last week, and suddenly on Monday I'm here again. So I won't introduce myself too much here. I did it already 4 days ago. We are here to play chess, speak kind of proper English, let's say, and try to beat everybody. And that's what we are going to try to do. I'm accepting the challenges as usual from premium users. I got a challenge from one non-premium user. I already declined it, so I will not make a mistake. And the first game is a 3-minute game versus why must I lose to this box? I assume we are speaking here about Magnus Carlsen because Maxi Box is his online nickname, and I have the black pieces, so already a bad sign. Lastly, I had like 6 whites in a row, I think. And let's go for the King's Indian. Why not? So my opponent plays g3. That he doesn't reveal his plans yet, but e3 is already telling me that d4 is going to be played, and then I assume knight to e2 or knight to e2 immediately. So I'm going to take the center with e5, and d3. It's possible. Let's go a5. Then I probably will put the knight on a6 or on d7. I can also play c6 with the idea of d5, and this is what I'm going to do. So I can already take the center with d5, but let me just grab some space on the king side with h5. If h4 is allowed, I'm going there. So I think my opponent should play h3 here, and because then if I go h4, g4 is going to happen. So if h4, I can put something on g4, and then I don't think white really wants to play f3 in a position like this. So here I don't mind going into the endgame. I'm going to play h4, h3 if possible. And here in this endgame, I think that I'm more than fine because this knight is on e2. This knight should be really on f3 here because now the knight is kind of blocked by my e5 pawn. So let's not blunder the rook. And after rook takes, I think here I can play bishop f5, just attack the rook. Then I'm going to play h3, and already I think that black has a big advantage in this position. The question is if I'm going to convert it or not. That's the other story, but I believe that black is already much better here. So knight a6, sometimes I want to go to c5, sometimes I want to go to b4. I think that knight a6 is the most active move. And in this case, when he plays a3, I'm going to play knight c5. Knight b3 followed by bishop a2 is a threat, but basically if I'm allowed to jump here, I think that white is in huge trouble because now rook a2 is kind of forced. And now let's play in the most accurate way. How to do it? So I want to improve my pieces even further. I'm going to play knight to d7. The knight is going to c5 next. And by doing that, I'm making sure that this rook is not going to go out from this cage here. So knight c5 is next. Then I'm going to play rook d8, and I think that positionally white is more or less busted on both areas on the board, both on the king side or on the queen side. I'm from Poland. Already see my friends from Poland making fun. That's good. So my opponent's idea is probably to play knight c1 here. And what then? So if knight c1, then I have to get rid of this beautiful knight. Do I have something smart here? I don't know. Let's play this move. I'm not sure about it, but let's go. Yeah, knight c1 as I assumed is going to happen. And here that's the question, what to do. Let's just play bishop f8 and see what my opponent wants to do, because now I think that the rook is still not going back. So now he's going to play knight c1, but I think in this case it's already too late because I have this move, kind of forcing him to play knight c3, and this rook is once again not going out. Now this is just a matter of technique, which I probably do not have, and that might be a problem. So do I have something smart here? The smartest thing would be not to lose on time, but b5 is just a horrible move because now he has knight d5. Still, I'm kind of winning here because I will play a4 and cement his rook, but the conversion is just horrible. Especially that I'm losing this pawn on b5, so everything is just going downhill here. But I have some idea here. So let's not lose on time, I said, right? Right, yes, let's not lose on time. That would be great. So I will talk slightly less now. I will focus more on what's going on the board, because he cannot take with the king because of knight c1, and now his rook is kind of dead here. And the pawn on h3 is a big asset in this position. I have a bad feeling I will lose on time this game. I have a bad feeling I will lose on time because I don't know what to do. That's the problem. So if you don't know what to do, just bring the king. Just bring the king, dude. So king e6. And he's just going to collect my pawn. I don't like this. I don't like the fact that we have a time scramble here. Ah, what to do, what to do. Okay, Primo City. This is going to be bad, but sorry, I just completely lost control there. I don't know what happened here. It's, you know, the topic of the first game usually is like this. So thank you for the game. Why not knight c1? I don't know. I didn't see at the moment where I could do this. Yeah, but the position was so good that it was really hard to screw up. Still, I managed. So another game, 3 minute versus Bogdan Girmasa. I think we played lately. Now I have the black pieces. And the goal is today to play as aggressively as possible with the black pieces and as calmly as possible with the white pieces. So let's go for the Budapest. And this is what we are going to do. We are going to play the Budapest. We are going to play the King's Indian with the black pieces. And with the white pieces, the goal is to play the King's Indian attack today. Yes, it was a very enjoyable game up to a certain point for me, because in a classical game, I think that it wouldn't last too long. But here I just completely lost topic of the game. So rook e8 here, and b3, bishop b2 is the most popular plan for white. So b3, a5, and after bishop b2, rook a6. This is like the most topical theme of this variation, where this rook joins the action. Rook h6 is going to be possible, and here it's important to go to a7, because if you go to f8, there's f4, and it's necessary to keep this pawn on e3 under the observation. Okay, bishop d4, I already don't know about this move. Now the question is if it's a good sign or a bad sign. I would assume it's a good sign, because if I don't know it, there is some chance it's not great. On the other hand, I just don't know what to do. So let's go for this controversial stuff. I'm going to give up this bishop on a7 and prioritize going for queen h4. Because if I go queen h4, then in the worst case scenario, I will just get back this knight on e4. I'm not sure about this, but I like it. Because if I go queen h4, there's also the chance I will have something like d5, bishop takes h3 immediately. And white's position might collapse. And if my opponent is not going to take this bishop, that means that bishop d4 is just a waste of time. And it's also an indication that I need to add one more variation to my my newest course. Okay, so g3, this should indicate that I should have a good position. But how to make the most use of it? So firstly, I want to just drop this bishop back. I don't want to exchange this bishop, because then it takes d4, and I just don't want to improve my opponent's pawn structure. Here, of course, I recapture with the rook. I see nothing wrong with it. And now there is a question, how do I want to keep attacking his position? I will start with c6, covering d5, and also d5 might be my idea. Knight d6 is never an option because don't forget that this rook is here, standing here on h6. And okay, I'm not even calculating. This is like the most topical line. I just think it should work. And now it's good time to start calculating. It's maybe too late. But this is how it usually goes. So let's go queen d7 with the idea of going queen h3. And now I see that it really doesn't work. And queen d7 is just a stupid move. Because of d takes c6, and I cannot play queen h3 due to queen d8, and there's a back rank problem. And I was kind of lucky here. But it's still a threat. So I'm not sure how lucky actually I am. Okay, let's go here. And if dc, maybe queen c7. But things are getting really out of control here. I cannot play queen c7. That means that my attack is probably going to be over if the queens are exchanged. I cannot exchange queens because if takes, bishop d7, there's rook d1, and I have back rank problems. And that means that I completely misplayed this position again. And I'm not too happy about it. Okay, I have no other move. I just have to do it. I hope it's not losing by force. It probably is. That's the problem. Okay, he should play rook d1 immediately. Because now I have time for this, which is still very quite bad for me, but I hope to have something like g5 next. And try to claim that I have some compensation. Okay, now I have no compensation, probably because there is no g5. But let me put the bishop here. There is going to be another time scramble, which I really hoped to avoid. But this I'm not sure about. I think that the knight has to just go back, and now I have g5. Now I have g5. And what next? This guy is hanging. No, it's not hanging. Now it's hanging. Now it is hanging. Another time scramble. But why? I just wanted to be a peaceful guy. I don't like winning on time. And it looks like I just have to. And it was horrible in the middle game. Thanks for the game. It was a good game. But I'm pretty sure that with those bishops on b8 and c8, it was great for black. I just completely, once again, misplayed it. And I hope that this trend is going to switch into my favor. So now I'm going to play a 3-minute game versus Evidence. Good game, Bogdan, of course. And as I've mentioned with white, we are going to test the King's Indian attack today. Why is it good to play solid as white? No, I didn't say it's good, but lately I was just playing the Trompowsky and some crazy stuff. So today I'm just going to switch to more positional things. And here we are going to play some kind of a Chigorin/Catalan setup with this knight on c6. This indicates that white already should have a slightly better position, I'd say, because normally you just develop the knight to d7 and then play either c6 or c5. While here, this knight is kind of misplaced. Okay, let's play very solidly with b3, just solidify the center. Now also let's go e3, and then maybe bishop b2. So as I've mentioned today, we play solid positional chess with the white pieces. Bishop d2, rook c1 next. If bishop b7, now I think it's time to exchange because there is no bishop on c8. Now the bishop on b7 is misplaced. Now I can play rook c1. And the idea, the long-term plan here might be to play b4, and b5 at some point. So knight e4. Do I want to take it? I probably don't want to take it, but if I don't take it, he plays f5 probably, but still, it's fine. If he takes the bishop, then I'm just recapturing with the queen, and this bishop was kind of weak behind this wall of pawns, so I just got rid of my bad bishop. Now the pawn on d5 is hanging, and my opponent has to play something like 97 exactly to protect this pawn. And now c6 is coming. So what is my plan to play this position? So firstly, let's go knight d3, improve the knight. And if c6, I'm probably going to play b4. Maybe I will play b4 immediately, with the idea of going b5 and kind of cementing the queen side. If I play b5 and my opponent replies with c6, then if I take the pawn on d5 is isolated forever. What I want to claim in this position is that his bishop on g7 is kind of caged by my pawns. It's very common theme in the Trompowsky also, where you just give away your dark squared bishop and then put all of your pawns on the dark squares. But in this case, I'm going to put one of my pawns on the light squares. If my opponent has time to plant the knight on e4, his position would be excellent. But in this case, it's really not going to be easy to plant the knight on e4. Especially now from c6, I can take on d5. Now the question is, with which piece do I want to take? Taking with the bishop is tempting because it's with check. But I like this one more for two reasons. The first one is that I just move the knight towards the center. The second, if he takes on d4, I have rook c8, and I just win the piece. So this was a small trap. Let's take. Let's take this. Let's take this. If queen takes, I have rook c1, and I'm happy about it. Rook c7 probably forced, I guess. Okay, this is also possible, but now the difference is that after anything takes on b7, I have queen c2, and I just won the battle for the c file. You've never known how to play the Budapest with the white pieces. That's something I hoped to target when I was creating the course, but those positions are so crazy that it's virtually impossible to play them correctly in Blitz, especially. Now after knight e6 followed by queen c8, I think that the position is just collapsing for black. Black is left with this bishop on g7, but it's like the worst piece that black might have. Here I think that queen c8 is a good move. And as I've mentioned, this guy on g7, he's just a spectator here, because those pawns are very nicely blocking this bishop. So take rook here. Okay, let's just take this. Go here, go knight g5, take the pawn. Or maybe instead of taking the pawn h4 with the idea rook c6. Good game evidence. Now we are going to switch to the game once again, a 3-minute game against Bo and L. Kramer. I think we played in the last session also. So once again, the black pieces saw the idea for the black pieces is to play aggressively as possible. What does it mean? That in this position we go c5, and if d5 we go b5, c3. No. We have to play aggressively. I'm going to sacrifice everything, even my soul, for the open line. But my opponent really wants to decline me playing aggressive chess here. I'm really trying to provoke d takes c5, and I think that this is exactly the moment where white should go for d takes c5, because then knight d4 and b4 are coming. How can I mix it up a little? Yes, it was a good game, but you just blundered the pawn, yeah. And I think that you should play c6 before I played b5, because then there was this bind on your position. Initially, it doesn't look that bad for black, but when you start thinking about it, when you just get this position later, you just see that something went wrong. And I think this was the moment where it went wrong. So I wanted to play g5, but here my opponent really forces me to play this move. So bishop b5, I'm not sure about. Let's go c4 and isolate this bishop, kind of forcing white to sooner or later take on c6. Now, do I have to play a6? I don't think so. I think I can just keep developing. Ooh, maybe I should play a6. I probably should play a6. Rook c8 maybe. Oh, uh-oh. That was not intended. I wanted to go rook c8. Now we are in we are in trouble. No, no. I you know what I did? I just grabbed the king. I wanted to castle kingside, and I just did ungrab the king. And now my opponent takes everything from me, especially my dignity in this position. Because I'm a pawn down and I'm going to be mated very, very soon. This king really doesn't want to be on the queen side. That's the problem. That's the problem. I didn't lose a game through last session, and also I hoped to not lose the game today. But this looks like a serious candidate. So let's go king b7. My only hope in this position is this bishop on f5. The reason for that is that whenever the b file is going to be opened, I hope to just take the rook that is going to land there. But now I see it's not going to be very easy, because if he takes on c4, rook b1 is a threat. So let's start with this one, which actually doesn't threaten anything, because if he takes, I cannot take because of rook b1. This is a bad situation. Okay, let's speed up. Let's speed up. I hope my opponent takes with the knight, because now I can just hide the king. Please, 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 please exchange queens. Which I'm not sure about if I should do it. Okay, so what do I do now? The rook is kind of hanging here, so I have to play something like this, but then bishop d6, right? Yeah. Now the game is more or less over. Oh, it goes really, really not the way I wanted. But there is one thing that is still my hope in this position. The clock. The clock and the c4 square, let's call it like this. And also my opponent might blunder the rook by taking. I called it. Still, I might have been tricked. I might have been tricked anyway. What do I do here? I think I have to do this. So actually, I have been tricked. So I take here. I think my opponent should really recapture. Then I'm going to play knight e3 and hope for the best. And I blunder the queen, right? This is definitely undeserved, what happened here. I feel embarrassed to play a game like this. Honestly, I feel embarrassed here. I should just go and hide into the other room for this. You should win, Boendel Kramer. Sorry for that. I even will not call it a swindle, but yeah, let's move on. The white pieces, Mr. Firepower 100, 3-minute game. 3 or 5, whatever suits you. I prefer 3. If you want to play 5, it's fine. It's harmful for the eyes. Yes, I agree. You were getting nervous. I was getting nervous, man. I was really getting nervous there because I was sure when I blundered the queen, I was sure that I'm just done in this position. Now let's have some fun. I wanted to play solid chess, but let's have some fun. Finally, maybe I should say let's have some fun, because up to this point, it's more like getting me a heart attack than having fun in many positions. So knight e5 is a good move. By playing e5, I just gave away protection of this square. And I will just play bishop d2 and play c3 next. Did I blunder again? Bishop e5 followed by queen f6? No, I have f4 there. Here I also have knight g4, but let's go here. If he takes, I of course take with the rook, but maybe I shouldn't say of course. Nothing is certain at this point. I can take a pawn, but I will never do that, because then I will just open up the light squares for my opponent. My bishop on d2 is a kind of not the best piece in the world. And I will play c3 and try to open up the position in the center. I gave away the pawn on a4, but I don't really mind doing that. So let's go here. Okay. And now it would be great to have some plan. Let's start with h4, trying to play h5. Then also I have this square on h2 prepared for my king. And now I think that if I don't know what to do, let's play a5. My next move is going to be a takes b6. Yes, Conrad, that is true. That is true. So let's take. And my opponent probably wants to play knight d6 and knight f5. So king h2, just overprotecting this pawn on g3. And now is the question, what to do? I really like this idea of c4. I will follow it up with bishop c3. I'm not sure if that's great, but I just open up the second diagonal for my other bishop. If queen g6, I have just queen f2, I think. That was my idea. That was my intention. Bishop e4 next, probably. So he cannot play rook a8, because then I just take the rook. Maybe I should play queen f3 instead of queen f2. Queen f3 was better, because then I can just play h5. I think I'm going for this idea anyway, but then that means I will have to waste a tempo. Oh, I think my neighbor just thought it's going to be a great idea to do some renovation right now. So, okay, I think I don't need this rook on e1. If he goes knight h6, I have bishop f3. Now I take, and if queen takes g4, I think that this is a good move. And this might be the first line that worked in my favor, not in my opponent's favor. Because not only the queen is lost, but in some cases g7 is hanging. So thank you for the game, Firepower 100. I think d4 was slightly premature in the opening. And let me just, in case, decline firstly the offers from players without the premium account, because I don't want to mistakenly accept them. And now, Kasparov Fun. In the last session, I drew a game against Kramnik Student. Now let's play against Kasparov Fun. So once again, the king's in attack. I'm going to bore people to death with this opening today. I can safely pre-move bishop g2, I think. Let's castle. Let's go d3. And now it depends on what my opponent is going to play. So knight b to d2. Thank you, Cobra. Thank you. Finally. Finally, it was a game that was, yeah, kind of decent, I would say. So here Black has some choices. I think that this is one of the most popular ones, but I'm never afraid of those structures, because if I play c3, I just cover this square on d4, then I can play queen e2, rook d1. And I believe that it's in white's favor to have the d file opened. Sometimes people get excited with this move, queen d3 here, but then I can either play knight e1, queen e2, or just something like rook e1. Here, queen e2. I could also play h3 immediately. It was probably preferable to do it. The only problem in this position for white might be the weakness of the d3 square. What is my FIDE rating? At the moment is 2383, so 2383, but I played the Polish first league and I gained 14 elo points, 13 elo points, so it's going to be 2396. Still one norm short from getting an international master title. I hope to get it sooner or later. Okay, I think it's a good moment to play e5, because if knight d5, I can just play something like rook d1, and I think that here white has a comfortable position. Actually, after queen c7, I think I have to go back. So this is probably not the best setup I have ever had, but okay, queen c7, rook e1 is fine for me. Now, the idea is to play h5, h6. That would be great. And if it's not going to work, then I'm going to have some longer thought about what to do with this position. h5, h6, if I manage to do it, I'm happy. If my opponent plays h5, I'm always going to jump into this newly weakened square. Now rook a to d1, and I think that white has a big positional advantage here. The idea is that in this position, I might play c4 to kick the knight from d5, and this is what I'm going to do. It's a little controversial because it weakens the t4 square, and I wanted to say that my opponent doesn't have a way to use it against me, but now I just realized there is knight f5 coming, and then knight d4. So let me prioritize some attacking tricks here on the king side. Okay, let's just play this most stupid move in the world, which is b3, just defending the pawn on a2. Unfortunately, my opponent is kind of low on time, so I don't think we are going to have a real fight from this position, because the clock is not going to allow that to happen. Bishop h3 maybe. I try to take this knight. So here. Okay, here I'm gladly going to take. And I'm going to win on time for sure. Although this position is not that great for me, I think, because I don't have a good way of protecting this pawn on f6. So I have to do something like this. And now give a check. Unfortunately, win on time. I would really love to play this position, but unfortunately, the clock is ruthless. It's not my fault, it's clock's fault. A very good game, Kasparov's fun. And now let's accept our friend from the chat, Mr. Cobra. I have the black pieces, so as you probably know, I'm expecting a lot of fight after I play c5, but people are just declining me this fight. Why? I just want to fight. b6, I don't know what is this about, but as I've mentioned, I just want some combative positions, and that's why I'm going to play the double Fianchetto. There should be a round of applause for this approach. But okay, if you play the black with the black pieces and your opponent really wants to avoid some tactical skirmish, you have nothing to do about it. With the white pieces, you can always play some gambit, but with black, it's very tough. Yes, I'm still playing the Sicilian 4 knights. One of my main responses versus e4, if not the main response nowadays. So now if c takes d5, I'm probably going to play knight b4, then rook c8 is my plan. So the idea is at some point to take on c4, play rook c8, knight a5, and play versus this so-called hanging pawns on d4 and c4. If knight e5, I'm probably not going to react. I'm going to play rook c8, solidifying the position, improving the rook, and kind of finishing development. So definitely a multi-purpose move. And at this moment, I think it's time to take on c4. And the reason for that is that my opponent is kind of forced to take on c6, because then the pawn on d4 would be hanging otherwise. And now I think it's really necessary to take with the pawn. After which I'm going to play e6, stop d5, which I think is stopped. I'm not sure about it, but the tactics look like they work in my favor. Bishop f3, I take, and c4 falls, so it's already a slightly tricky position for white to play. I have a very clear plan on the other hand. Queen d7 followed by rook f to d8, and I'm just targeting white's weaknesses. At some point, I might also consider going for something like bishop h6. And okay, knight b1, I just don't believe in this move. I think that this knight rather belongs on c3. So queen d7, rook f to d8. According to the plan, I just want to develop everything. If my opponent takes, I'm just going to recapture with the queen, keeping my queen active. And I think now I just gave d5, right? This I'm going to take. Otherwise, I think d5 was a move because of the tempo on the queen. So up to this blunder, pretty fine. And the Trailblazer, 3 minutes with the white piece, I think we played in the last session. And last time I got like 4 3 points, but not this time. This time everybody just wants to beat me. No, I'm leaving. This is my line. I started playing this like 13 years ago. When I was preparing for Polish Junior Championship, I just prepared this obscure line for white, and I started playing it. And since then, I played like, I don't know, 100 games with it, even classical games. So you cannot use it against me. This should be really shouldn't be permitted. But let me have some fun now. At least we are going to have a fighting position this time. So let me play e5, put the knight on h5. So in 5 moves, I made 4 moves with one knight. I put the knight on h5, and I'm going to try to claim that my position is kind of okay. Knight c6. Why not? Attacking this pawn on e5. If f4, now I have queen h4. So my opponent wants to play knight c3 and castle queenside, so let's play this move. And this was the idea, that now there is no knight c3 for my opponent. Bishop h4, on the other hand, I think it is a viable move. And now the question is if I want to play d6 or f6 at some point. I think d6 is better. And here I think that taking is great because the queen is no longer protecting the bishop on f2. So the king has to go back to f1, I guess. And now I have many options here. Starting with this one, which I think I'm going to go for, because now I have bishop h3. And how to finish the game? Maybe by taking the rook. This should be enough. Yeah, queen g2 is coming. So, very optimistic approach, Mr. the Trailblazer, but braveness should be praised. And now the 3-minute game versus Vasilen. Once again, the King's Indian attack. And my opponent decides to go for the Dutch setup, the classical Dutch setup. So d6 and queen e8, I'm expecting to see. Let's sacrifice a pawn. I said I'm going to play the King's Indian attack, but it doesn't mean that we cannot have some fun. And after knight e4, my idea is to play c4 next. c4, rook e1, knight c3, and just claim that I will have some compensation. So in the last session, I just wanted to play many theoretical positions. Today I'm more in the mood for some obscurity. Maybe knight g5 is already a move. Because my opponent wants to go e5, I assume. Let's go b3, bishop b2 maybe. And here my idea was to play this. Because now d5 drops the pawn on e5. And if queen there, I can play this move. And I don't believe in my opponent's chances of any successful attack versus my king when the center is so opened. Now also the pawn on d6 is hanging, and I don't see a good way to protect this guy. The only thing for black might be to go for something like bishop g4 and queen h5, but also it was tough to believe for me that it would work well for black. Now I think I'm going to play knight b5. The idea is that after queen a5, I have bishop takes d6, which I didn't calculate to the end, but I think it works. I have too many active pieces. And now I can take on e5. The question is, which piece do I want to take with? Maybe I will take here and here. That's the idea. And not only now I got back the pawn, I'm going to play knight d4 and use this newly created weakness around black's center. What to do? Let's just take, play rook c1, switch to positional chess now. So queen d4, I hope that my opponent is going to blunder with knight e4, then I'm going to just take the knight. And once again, I think that I got a decent position. So now I want to play this one. So knight e1, knight d3, knight c5. I think it is a strong plan. And okay, why I thought that this move is impossible? I just hallucinated that I can just take this knight. Fortunately, I think I have this one. Yeah, because knight e5, bishop d7, knight f3, knight e1 protects. So this was just stupid, but fortunately, I think it works for me. If I'm not mistaken, my opponent really has to play h5 here. Because otherwise, oh, there's also this move, which I didn't see. And he cannot play h5, of course, because then I take. I'm just completely blind. Sorry for that. So rook g5. Actually, I think that's now my position is suddenly just great. Thank you for a game, Cobra, and don't be sorry for a big blunder. It happens to everybody. So my opponent tries to get some pressure versus f2, but actually this pawn is protected by the queen now. So it shouldn't be a big problem. Bishop f3 is next. Here I just take with the rook, go rook f4. Yeah. Thank you for the game, Mr. Vasilen. And now another game, John Tadros, 3 minutes. With the black pieces again. So the black pieces means we are going for the kill. d4. Knight f6. Okay, so the London system. Let's play the most obscure line that is available. So knight d5, queen b6. Actually, it's not that bad. I think it's pretty playable. And here I'm just going to grab this guy. And the idea is that if knight c4, I would have queen b4. And here I think I can safely just take here. And here. Let's take everything. It's risky. It's very risky, but still, I just want to do it. Now, the question is if after knight c3, if bishop f7 works. But I don't think it can ever work. Knight c3, bishop takes, king takes, knight e5, king g8. And if knight g5, also king g8. So let's go here. And with this move, I think I force the queen's exchange, because otherwise queen a1 not only drops the rook, but also leads to some mating problems for my opponent. Now the question is, how do I want to arrange my pieces? Because in some cases, bishop e5 might be an annoying option. So let's start with this move. Make sure that this knight is not going to be lost in the battle. And after knight c6, I think that black is just 2 pawns up for very little compensation. Your secret weapon against the London, it is. Why is it so secret? It's already not so secret. If you said it, then it's not secret anymore. Okay, let's go d5. So in some cases, my opponent wants to play rook e3. So by playing d5 and e6 first, now the idea is that if white goes rook e3, I can play knight b5, although it drops the pawn on d5. So I might be forced to look for something else. And the move that looks quite good for me after rook e3 is d4. Okay, this should help me because we are just exchanging pieces. I'm 2 pawns up. Every exchange should be suitable for me, but this move looks very appealing because I think I'm grabbing even more material here. After this one, suddenly all the 4 squares on the queen side are just covered by my pieces. The only shade of compensation that my opponent might have here is to go bishop e5, and then after takes, knight b5, take on g7, and claim that some dark squares are going to be his compensation, but I just don't think it's going to work. If bishop takes g7, I have knight e2, so this is forced. And now the question is if I want to play knight b5 or if I want to play d4, because d4 looks extremely tricky, but then I give away this square on c4. So let's not be tricky, let's just be solid here. There is no point in complicating my life. I'm great, but Bonk Cloud, I never tried, I never will. You know, I'm the openings guy. If I get a bad position after the opening, I'm just, you know, my body starts to react very differently. Like this is some kind of allergic stuff. You know, I'm starting to crying, I'm starting to lose my hair, and I wouldn't ever like that to happen, so no bomb clouds, sorry. But what I can do here is to solidify my center, put the knight on e4. This rook on g7 is quite nice. Okay, so bishop a6, bishop c4, let's challenge this guy on b3. And I think that it is going to be a good game. What I don't want to allow is I don't want this knight to jump to f5, so that's why I played this move king d7 first. So let's take, and now the knight is going to jump to c5, not f5. Good job, Kamil. Yes, but I think I have this one. I want to take on g3 and play king d6. And I don't even want to take this guy. Let's double, let's play h5. I think it's over after this one. I take here, I take here. I go here, and rook c3 is my threat. Yeah, that's mate, right? What am I thinking about? Thanks for the game, John Tedros. I think in the opening you should do something else, not knight d2. Knight d2 is probably too slow. And now a 3-minute game against Peedle. 3 minute, the black pieces. Once again, let's try to have some fun. Now I promise some gambits. I don't know how, but let's go for the biggest gambit on move number 1, which is to play the Scandinavian. Let's now play knight f6, and after d4, I will play bishop g4. Here, bishop f5, just go back. So my opponent doesn't really want to fight for this extra pawn on d5. It's a good thing, I think. It is something that you should do very often in Blitz, that you are giving back the pawn just to have peaceful life. So queen takes d5 now. If knight c3, I'm just going back to d7 with the queen. Then I'm going to play knight c6 and castle queenside. So this is the plan from this position. I think that white is kind of overextended in the center. This pawn on f3 is a weakness, and the queen on d3 is also not too great. And I'm just going to try to claim that my position is pretty decent. And this is exactly the way I wanted to do it, because there is a pin on the d file. So pin for a win, I hope. I think there's no way to protect this pawn now. It's already slightly too late. And taking with the queen on d5 is possible. Okay, my opponent doesn't really allow me to take. So let me just... What have I done just? What have I just done? Okay, he cannot take on c6, but it was close. Now, I just want to play bishop b6 and knight b4 next. Once again, exploiting this pin. But you know, this bishop on b6, the king on h1, if only I have the rook on h8 and the pawn on h4. Okay, knight b4. I'm just going to get this pawn back. Like a greedy Guillermo. So, queen b3. Take, I guess. Actually, after he takes, I can take on e2. This might be even better. Oh no, there has knight b6, ab. He cannot take on d7 because of rook e1, but okay, never mind. My opponent doesn't even allow this. Queen f5. Bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes f6, knight takes f6. If knight takes d5, I think rook takes d5 works. Here, I think I can take with the knight. But then he has queen takes f7, which I missed. Okay, knight g3. So let me put my queen here. This is a little controversial because the queen is slightly out of the game. And if rook d1, I think I'm going to play rook d3. Okay, I can't help myself. I have some hopes for some tricks here. Okay, rook d1. I don't know how to provoke this. Let's go here. F5 maybe. I think it's going to work because the idea is that if the knight moves, I have knight g3. What is the rule behind good positional chess? Can you please tell us? I don't play good positional chess, so I cannot. But firstly, thank you for the game, Pedal. Now let's accept another one. Marcos Garcia 75. The white piece is knight f3. The secret behind good positional chess, I don't know. I learned positional chess when I was already 2100. So before that, I just didn't know that the rook is a better piece than the bishop. But just study classics. I know that it sounds trivial, but it is like it is. Those guys 50, 60 years ago, they didn't have the access to the computer. So they just played using purely their strength, and they were great at analyzing and stuff like this. So I would say that you should study the classics. Here, another King's Indian attack. This is the goal for today. Queen e2, I stop bishop a6, and after this move, I have many options. I will play knight f1. It looks a little controversial, but I like it. Because the idea is I want to play bishop f4 and try to provoke e5. If I provoke e5, I'm very happy because now I take and put the knight on e3, put the knight on d5. And my next moves are going to be designed to prove that this bishop on g7 is just a bad piece. And by getting rid of this dark squared bishop, I also increased control over the d5 square. Because now this knight on d5, it's going to be very hard for my opponent to challenge this knight. And now I'm just going to give back this knight, but I'm going to get a rook in return. So here the question is, what is the cleanest conversion? I think I should take and open up this bishop, right? That's definitely the cleanest. Queen b5 looks appealing, but then queen f6, I guess. Oh, I like it. Let's go here. And if e4, then I don't know. Then I will start thinking again. So the idea was to play knight c4 here and threaten rook d6. And I think I'm going to win the house with this move. There's no pin. Now I'm a clear piece up. And what I really need to avoid is not to allow any problems on the dark squares. And I believe that with this construction, nothing like this might ever happen. After queen e6, I'm now more than happy. Piece up with a pawn advantage. Thank you for the game, Marcos Garcia. I think that you shouldn't play e5 in this position, because if you lose control over the d5 square, something like this might happen. 3-minute game, Mr. Yup, FIDE Master. I think we were supposed to play in the last session, and somehow you just missed the game. But I'm not sure. So it looks like my opponent is not here. So 5 more seconds and we switch to another game. Yep, let's go. Mr. Anup Saxena 3-minute game. Sorry for mispronouncing. Oh, sorry, I just accepted the other game. So Mr. Anup Saxena is next. I'm pretty sorry about it. I don't know how did it happen, but it's okay. We are playing against Mr. Friedel. Once again, we are playing the King's Indian attack with the white pieces. Let's go for a4. This is always a useful move in those structures. Rook e1, also a useful move. And now this is a question how I want to approach this position. So as usual, I'm going to play c3. And seeing my opponent still having the king in the center, I think that I'm supposed to play it like this. And now there are some possibilities. So the first one is to even completely ignore this and play e5, and it looks extremely appealing to me to do it. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it just looks very interesting, and I like it. I think that it's worth doing it. And now after knight e4, I'm going to plant the knight on d6 or on c5. And I'm just trying to have some fun here in this position. So I have two options, either knight d6 or knight c5. I'm not sure if I want to define them yet. That's why I'm going to play h4. Whenever you can push the h pawn, you should do it. Don't quote me on that, but I like to approach those King's Indian attack middle games with this rule. So h6 is, if possible, I'm always going there, because then even many endgames are extremely good for me. So I'm not kind of forced to checkmate my opponent, but I'm just going to claim that this pawn on h6 is going to be a big pain. I'm not going to say where. So knight d6, now I think it's a good time, because if knight f5, I just take. And also this pawn on h6, it weakens my opponent's king. Now knight g5, the other knight is joining the action. There are already some problems on f7, so f6. And now the question is if I want to ignore it or not. I have this move. Let's go here. So two knights around the black king. If f takes, I take with the pawn probably. And whenever something like rook f8 happens, I can always just take this bishop on h8. And I'm just going to claim that all of those dark squares around the black king are permanently weakened. What can be problematic for me in this position is that he has this control over the d5 square. And I don't have a clear plan on what to do now. So if you don't know what to do, you should develop some units, but you should not blunder everything with one move like I just did. Actually, it might be not that bad for me. Oh, it's horrible, actually. I thought d takes e5, queen f2, king h2, but then he can even take on g2 and play knight e3. So it's just very bad for me at the moment. Okay, how can I maximize my chances of some swindle here? Rook takes, queen d4, it doesn't work. Bishop c3, b4, I guess. Bishop e3, I think I have to play. This is not the move that I wanted to play. But this is the position that I got, and I just have to play it. And actually, I blundered everything, right? That's not the way how chess should be played. Bishop g2 and queen d6 is coming. How did I get from that position to this one? I have no idea. Bishop g2 and queen d6. Just I blundered everything. So now I have to, once again, enter a swindle mode. Firstly, it would be great not to blunder on f2. Okay, this pawn on h6 is like my only hope. And my opponent just wants to mate me. And he's right. He's definitely right. Unfortunately for him, I cannot allow this to happen. But still, I'm just a piece down in this position. But I have some tricks. I already see some tricks if the rooks are exchanged. Okay, still, I cannot blunder this pawn. So I'm going to go back. And hope that the clock is going to be my friend once again in this session. Now my opponent consolidated, and it is going to be a time scramble. I'm hugely ahead on time, so I'm really ashamed to win like this. If it could be like 3+2, I would lose half of the games today. Very good game, Friedel. I thought after h6 I'm doing great. Actually, it was not that simple. And now I'm accepting the challenge from the user Anub Saxena. And Mr. Friedel, I hope to behave better next time. Let's play e5. After my opponent plays e4, let's go for the Elephant Gambit. Hello, Kruchi. Long time no see. And here white is really kind of forced to play queen e2, because otherwise I just take on d5, and here I would claim that even black's position is slightly more pleasant. So knight f6. Maybe I should start with bishop c5. Maybe that was important. Because exactly of something like this, still I think I can go queen g5. And if white castles, I have bishop h3. Although once again, I'm not sure of what I'm doing. I promised you some aggressive chess. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying my best, but sometimes it really backfires. Especially the positions I get with the white pieces today. I'm not sure about them. But here g3 has to be played, and now the question is if I really want to give up this bishop for this rook, because there's also bishop g4. And if I have to be honest with you, I prefer to play this move. Because if f3, then I can take with the pawn, even hide the king, I don't know, on f8, something like this, and keep attacking. Because this knight on d4 is still going to be pinned. So my opponent should probably play something like this. And here I hope that I'm going to have decent attacking chances. I have to watch out for this bishop on c1, so I'm going to step back with queen h5. If bishop takes, then knight takes, and h4 is forced. Then I'm probably going to play g5. Probably, not sure. Also, I can take on c4 on d4, play knight c6 and castle queenside. That's the other option, to bring more units into the game. f3 I didn't expect, but it looks like a good move. It wasn't even my candidate move. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I didn't even see it. I probably it should be bad. Okay, let's exchange everything. One wise man once told me that the less pieces you have, the less you have to think. And since then, I just loved this rule. Well, I remember when I was like 12, I was playing one of my first tournaments. And we had this discussion, what is better, classical chess or blitz? And I was like, yeah, blitz. I prefer blitz. I was like joking, I prefer blitz because then you have to think less. And there was this older the player from the older generation, 2300 master, who just approached me with this look at me and just, what, why does the thinking hurt you? And since then I was like, it probably does. Here I have bishop takes d4 because this rook is pinned. It looks like very difficult to react at 3000 plus ratings. You know, I always, when I was playing online, always my approach was to play against the strongest players available, and I never feared of playing against stronger players because this is where you train the most. This is where you can learn the most from games against those players. And I was never afraid of playing those guys. Unfortunately, they are not always there, and they prefer to play against each other, I guess, because okay, I'm just a no-name FM from Poland, and they are like 2,700 people. But you know, sometimes you can just get a game with one of those guys, and I have pleasant experiences from such games. Is it tough to maintain this rating? Playing like I play today, yes. But this and this should be enough. I don't see a way for my opponent to untangle here. I'm going to play rook d3 and rook h1. I can also play rook h1 and just exchange rooks, doesn't really matter. It's hard to reach 3000, okay, it's hard to reach. I don't know. On chess24, for me, reaching 3000, honestly, I don't want to sound too cocky, but it didn't take too much time. So I'm going to accept the challenge from Mr. Dodgy, of course, because who wouldn't? And as I can see from his avatar, Mr. Dodgy is for sure from Australia. And good luck, Mr. Dodgy. And good luck to me. I think I'm going to need it. So symmetrical. And why are you doing this to me? This is something new or this is either a new line or a new mouse. One of these two. There's no other way. And here I think it's time to go for c4 because I want to undermine this knight. It would be really bad if actually this would work well for black. If it's some kind of a novelty, I have to learn it. I'm not going to lie. If knight d6, I have knight e5, and I think that black's position is quite poor there. Bishop d7 is forced here, because if b5, there's bishop takes c6. And it's over, I think. So bishop d7 has to be played. Then I take on c6 with the knight, I guess. And queen c8 is interesting. And here I think I can take. And now, what is the idea for my opponent? It's either e6 and bishop e7 or g6, bishop g7. So I think by playing b3, I'm kind of discouraging both of them because firstly, I'm just trying to get the pawn on c4. That's obvious, but bishop b2 would be a reply to g6. Bishop b2 would be also a reply to e6. And do you really want to play bishop e7 when I can take on g7? I'm not sure. So after e5, I'm just going to play bishop b2. Trying to get this pawn. I'm not going for some kind of greedy approach with b takes c4. I just prefer to do this one. And now when my opponent's really provoking me to do it, I should have something here. But let's just keep developing with knight c3. And now knight d5. So the idea is that my opponent still cannot castle because of bishop takes d7. And I'm just bringing more pieces into the game. Another wise man once told me it's useful to do it. And here I think that the best shot for black is to take on c6 and play queen d7. But then knight takes c7. Now I realize that he cannot do that. So the position is better than I thought, probably. So here I take. Rook f2 c1 is next. Bishop takes d7 followed by knight takes d7 was also a threat in this position. So here I just take with the knight, and I think it's kind of over because either queen d5, and if the knight moves, queen c4 is coming, and the king cannot find a safe home. Rook takes a7 also is interesting. And here I think that's just queen c4, and the idea is that if king g6, I have queen g4, so it's even worse for black probably. Yeah, thank you for the game, Mr. Dodgy. And now we are going to play against Mr. Manel Paiva. 3-minute game. Okay, I promised knight f3 today, but 10 games in a row with knight f3. No man can handle that. But I hope to play some interesting lines as well here. So b3, don't try this at home. Now bishop b2, let's go. I see nothing wrong with this one. So here I think I can just take, right? Suddenly this bishop on b2 can create some harm. So e4 looks like a better game. Thank you, Manel Paiva, for this short game. I have to decline everything that is non-premium, and now we are going to play against Chess Phoenix 17, 3100 international master. So let me play something else. 94 definitely the novelty. I think it has some potential. How do you study openings with different variations? Do you remember all openings? I try to remember all plans. I just don't force myself to remember all variations. I just try to always know what to do. And seems like Mr. Chess Phoenix is not here. So we're going to abort. Mr. Dangerous Right in the last session got 2 games. So in this session, I think it's fair to claim that in 2 games in 2 sessions is a fair result. Conrad 008. I hope it's not Conrad from Poland, because then I know this guy. Let's go for another e5. Let's go for the other Elephant Gambit. Queen e2 has to be played here. So once again, I'm just going to play this line, claiming that black has a good position. So queen e5. Let's see if my opponent is going to fall for, okay, he's not going to fall for what I was intending, but this is also pretty good for black. So take, and I think that this pawn has to be taken sooner or later, so I would rather take it immediately with white. And the problem with white's position is that after something like bishop d3, bishop d6, castling kingside is not recommended. This much I can tell. So queen takes c2, but now I think knight b4 is a move. If bishop b5, I have queen takes b5, and I win like everything. Here I just take the bishop. Do I want to play bishop f5 and allow queen b5? Yes, I want to play bishop f5. If queen b5, I just take and play bishop b4. If queen d5, I can take with the knight, and this looks like a good position for black. So let's grab this guy. And I think that the game is going to be over pretty soon. I know that I have today, I prepared a Christmas mug to drink something that is inside. Let's put it like this. But I didn't know that people are going to grant me with so many gifts. And I'm stupid, because why did I take on f1? Like bishop d2 is, oh, bishop d2, king e2. I thought that bishop d2 was mating. Okay, never mind. Let's not blunder the queen. Let's play. Okay. Thank you for the game, Conrad. 08. Now Super Rico. Also 3-minute game. So far so good. d4 once again, knight f6. Nobody is playing c4 today. It's like either London or some knight f3. Queen b6 again. And here white has to play either knight c3 or b3. If knight c3, I take and go g6, bishop g7. If b3, I take on d4 and go g6, bishop g7, if I'm not mistaken. And if there is also c4, which I actually analyzed today. And it's also a decent move. And here white is just fine, but what I try to achieve in this position is to get a better pawn structure. Black has a better pawn structure, and now also this pawn on c3 is isolated, so d takes c5 shouldn't be played. c4. If knight c6, then rook b5 looks dangerous, so let's maybe start with b6. b6 has this advantage that now white is never going to be able to play c5, and I can just stick to bishop b7 now. Psychological also plays a role when playing against low-rated and high-rated opponents. Yes, especially if you do it for the first time. I remember the first time in my life when I was playing David Nawara 2 years ago in a Polish extra league game. The first 30 minutes, it was like entering the church. You know, this feeling is just strange. You play against the player who, you know, faced Magnus Carlsen, who faced Kasparov for sure, and now you have a chance to play against him. So yes, this is something I have to tell you, and it's not easy psychologically to do it. Here, knight a4, I think, is a great move. No, okay, I will not say it's great move, good move, because then I can put my knight on c3, and this knight stands very well on c3. Also, the pawn on a2 is going to be hanging, and if rook b2 or rook a1, I have knight e2, and I just take everything. Basically, my opponent has to play either rook b3 here or rook b2 e1, and here I can take on a2 immediately. But I think that this move also has some potential. And now when I don't see a better move, I'm going to take. And what is next? That's a very good question. I can just bring my king to the center maybe. Because my opponent also doesn't have too many moves. This allows knight b4. This is what I was hoping for. And now this pawn is hanging, and rook c1 is not going to do the job. This I can share because of bishop b2. And if c3, now white has another weakness. The knight can just safely go back, and knight a5 is going to be my next continuation. As you can see, those pawns on the c file now are terribly weak, and it's extremely hard for white to just parry this threat of knight takes c4. So I'm going to be 2 pawns up in a good position. I don't have to force matters. I can just play bishop f6, king d7. And only after I do this, I can just take. But the question is if I really want to do it. I think I do. I will lose this pawn on a7, but it's not that important. I'm going to get those 2 pawns in the process. And after rook b3, rook b2, I think that white's position is just lost. Now also, I could just take it, but it shouldn't really matter too much. 2 pawns up now, 3 pawns up. Rook b1, b3, b2. Thank you for the game, Super Rico. I think that taking on c5 was a strategic mistake, after which you were left with the doubled c pawns. And now I can see the challenge from Mr. ACZ. 2646 rating with I played the black pieces, and I'm facing another English. So here I'm going to play my setup against the fianchetto King's Indian. So the idea is that at some point I just want to move this knight from f6 and play f5, the typical King's Indian style. And this bishop on g2 is not too impressive in this setup, I think. Now the question is if I want to play knight h5 or knight d7 or knight e8 even. Knight h5 looks the most active. Let's go here. So here I want to play b6. Whenever white takes on c5, I just want to have this option of recapturing with this b pawn. And now I think f5 is a threat, because if white takes on f5, I can take with the g pawn. And any knight discovery, like knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, is good for me, because then this knight on c3 is going to hang in the end. And after I do this, I think that black's position is pretty comfortable. The only thing that I really don't want to allow is knight g5, knight e6, because then I would just open up his pieces. While after I go e4 here, I think that I'm winning material. Because I take on c3, I take on e1. I can also take on g3 here and just go for the pawn, not for the exchange. And it also looks interesting, because I can see some positions in which my opponent is going to have some compensation, but I just don't believe it. I think that this is the best move. And knight g6, I think I can just play something like rook f6. So here, just queen f6. Solidify the position. Rook b8 is next. And I think that black is in very good shape. This I thought I can even ignore. But why not this? Queen takes f2 is also possible now. So I think rook e2 or rook f1, one of these two. And this is probably the last, or maybe even one more. Depends on how long it takes. I mean the game, of course. So I can take on h3, but then my opponent has bishop takes e4. I also can play bishop f5, which I kind of like, because it really simplifies the situation. I can also give this check on a1 and then take on h3, and this looks like the best option. Because if I give this check, he cannot play king h2, because then I exchange queens, I think. Yeah, let's go here. If king h2, I can just go queen e5. And I think that this endgame is going to be good for black, especially that the knight on h4 is not too appealing. And now I think I can take. Now I think I can take. It looks risky, but I can do it. Because if queen g5, I have queen g7. If rook takes, I thought I can play king h8. Oh, knight, no, I cannot play. I cannot play what I wanted. So it might be slightly problematic now. I should not allow this to happen. Okay, let's give this check and play rook takes f2. Rook takes f2, rook e8, right? It looks fine. Queen e8, rook e8. Bishop d3, I have what I have after bishop d3. I have bishop f5 there. And if knight takes, I have queen g2. Also, if bishop d3, I have queen a1. It's much simpler. And here I just go back. That was my idea. And bishop g4 is my next move if possible. And now, which I think this is safer, because my opponent doesn't even have any decent check. Let's take with the king. Let's take this and just hide my king on h8. Rook f8, king h8. I think it's too much for white. I managed to consolidate. I managed to tackle all of the attacks. Now I just need to be careful not to lose on time. Let's just exchange queens. It wasn't even an exchange. So do we have a time for one more? I see the challenge from Little Gary, and it's going to be the last game. 3-minute game versus Little Gary. Let's speed it up. Go e4 with the white pieces. The Scandinavian. What do we do against the Scandinavian? It depends on the variation, I think. Let's go d4. I don't know anything here. I just have to be honest with you. And knight b5. Let's try this. And now my opponent is thinking, let's go bishop f4. Try to create some problems. Some problems on c7. I think like knight a6 should be played here. And I have some possibilities. I'm going to go for some crazy variation, I think. I wanted to have some fun in the end. Let's have some fun. By any means, I did calculate this. I just hope that it's fine for me. I just want to take on b5 with the bishop and force his king to go to e7. Then I'm going to castle long, put the rook on the e file, and I'm not trying to look for any immediate win here. I just want to have long-term compensation. My opponent probably correctly declines it. I don't want to retreat to a3, but I'm worried I have to. Let's castle first. I'm not afraid of him taking on b5. What I'm more afraid is exactly this plan of just hiding. And here I think even taking is possible because then he has king f8, so I definitely went too far with this sacrifice. But okay. I went too far many times today already, so this one shouldn't make any significant difference, I guess. Although this position looks quite shaky. Okay, this knight really should be taken now, because then king f7, and I probably don't have any compensation, I guess. Just a pawn. Now I really want to play knight a3. Yes, thank you. Now I really want to play knight a3. Just get the knight back home, and I'm happy to save this poor guy. So bishop h3, rook e1 is my idea, and this is officially the last game of the session. So bishop h3, rook e1 is next. And this shouldn't be played because now I can repair my pawn structure. It was better to play something like knight f4, I guess. So rook e1. If b5, I just go queen c2, or maybe queen d1 to keep c2 for my knight. And what now? Let's go queen c2 now. Threaten to take on h7. And I just want to solidify my position, just improve my pieces. f4 is probably next. So after I go f4, here I don't want to exchange. I can play this move also. This looks nice. Why not? This knight looks... this is an irritating knight. I'm pretty sure about it. So f4. And probably I missed... I think I missed queen d5. It wasn't played, so let's jump to a newly created outpost. Now go back. And still, this knight couldn't be challenged. Now it was by the queen, but now I'm just trying to create some problems for my opponent. Is g4 a move? No, because f4 is hanging, so bishop f3. Just improving my pieces. And once again, I think that the time is going to decide the game. But I think that white has a big advantage anyway. So thank you for the game, Mr. Little Gary. And yeah, that's it. This looks like the last game of this session. And I hope you liked it. I hope there will be many more coming. And also, I was extremely lucky today. To sum up, I think I won all games, but I should lose like 4 of them for sure. So I hope to behave better the next time. See you guys.